War has torn apart the Wulin Empire for generations, and although most believe the strife will never come to an end, the Zhanhu General Zhe is determined to achieve the impossible, even if that means being the most ruthless strategist the Wulin has ever seen. With the Starfall sword, a legendary weapon forged from a meteorite that holds great reverence to his people, Zhe intends to forge an alliance with the Horkos. But that is only one part of a much larger plan. With Astria coming to him, Zhe intends to finally restore honor to his faction. As winter sets in on Heathmoor and Frostwind celebrations stir, he has invited the warmonger to a windswept harbor under his control, offering the fabled sword as a token of allegiance. He knows her thirst for dominance mirrors his own. Yet behind the formalities, Zhe's mind churns with stratagems, preparing for the next steps of his plan. In his heart, Zhe carries both the scars of war and the hope for a future where his people rise from the ashes, finally united under one banner. Part 1. A long time ago, before the earth shook and when the light was still young, there was a great war. 2 armies locked in battle for what some perceived to be ages. Warriors died by the thousands. Over time, the reasons for the battle were lost to them. All anyone remembered was the anger, the need to fight, and so weapons were forged. Blood continued to spill. But then one night changed everything. After regrouping, the 2 armies were about to charge into battle yet again. That was when it came. A silvery light plucked from the sky, twinkling as it fell, rumbling and burning as it grew closer. Before the 2 armies could once again clash on the battlefield, it hit the ground, fire roiling, grass burning, and dirt splattering. The explosion hushed the 2 armies, every warrior brought to a standstill. Leaders from both sides walked to the crater, looking down at a rock not of this world. They took it as a sign, intervention from the heavens. Fate made manifest. The time of battle was over. The 2 armies came to an understanding. No more pain and suffering. No more death. Now had come the time of peace. Blacksmiths from both sides were called forth, and together they used metal from the fallen rock to forge a weapon, one whose blade reflected the very stars under which it was made, the Starfall sword, a symbol of peace, of understanding, fealty, a sword that would, throughout time, be given in times of great turmoil, a gift meant to put aside our differences, something to make us, the Wulin, stronger. With his story over, General Zhe looked down at the weapon in front of him. Both his palms rested on the table, the Starfall sword gleaming in the firelight. Then he looked up at the opposite end of the table. There sat Lord Shun, a renowned Zhongjun warrior who commanded respect, an old man with many victories under his belt, whose frown served as an impenetrable helm. He was flanked by his guards, 2 sitting at his side and a row of 5 standing behind him. They all stared at Zhe, as stoic as their lordship. A lesser man would have been vexed, but that was not who Zhe was. The general had attained his title with blood, with the broken and twice-mended knuckles on his hands, with the respect of his men and banners only raised once he attained power, and above all, with ruthlessness. Part 2. I am more than familiar with the legend of the Starfall sword, General Zhe, Shun said flatly. But that still does not answer the question I asked you. Why have you summoned me here? The question was as cold as the wind whistling outside the warmth of these halls. To Zhe, the answer was obvious. Perhaps Shun was not as smart as he thought he was. Leaving the sword on the table, Zhe moved to the side, toward his guest. Too long have we been divided, the general declared. At war with one another? I seek to finally put an end to our internal conflict. You want me to join you? Shun held back a laugh, then let it out. It took over the entire room, filling the otherwise silent hall with a tension as sharp as Shun's own Guandao. When he was done laughing, the lord squared his shoulders. Let me tell you something, Shun continued, condescension in his tone. I know what you have been up to ever since the Hungry Ghost Festival catastrophe. You are growing in power, amassing more and more men behind you, and it seems to have gotten to your head, Je. Here is the truth. You were just at the right place at the right time. You got lucky. You think you can, what? Save us? Unite us? There is nothing special about you. Je stopped his hand from curling into a fist. He held back the anger bubbling inside of him. He hadn't gotten where he was now by reacting irrationally. This was all going according to plan. But still, Shun's entitlement and false sense of superiority gnawed at his patience. No, Shun. I don't expect to save anyone. What I'm interested in is greatness. With these words, Je moved ever closer to the end of the table. He noticed Shun's guards tense ever so slightly. Knights, Vikings, samurai. They are all anyone talks about. In Heathmore, Je scoffed, we are nothing but short of an afterthought. At this point, Je circled past the guard sitting to Shun's right and stopped in front of the 5 warriors standing behind. I want to restore honor to the Wulin name, he continued. It's time for all to recognize us. Time for all to fear us. The dagger was in Je's hand before any guard could react. He slit the first guard's throat, and in one effortless twirl, circled around to stab another in the heart. The remaining guards erupted into battle, unsheathing weapons and screaming of treason. No. That is what none of them understood. This was not treason. This was Je thinning out the herd to make it stronger, to make it something to be proud of. Part 3. They swung at him, and with elegant twirls and sidesteps he avoided their blades. A step back here, another there. With every move, Je inched closer to his side of the table. He blocked an arm and broke it before lodging the blade into the guard's side. The warrior fell back, taking the weapon away from Je, but it didn't matter, for the Starfall sword was now within reach. The ceremonial sword now in his grasp, Je leapt on the table, his robe swirling and flapping with grace, and he got to work. He had asked for privacy. His personal guard had offered to be in the room with him, but he had insisted. This was something he felt he needed to do on his own. And now, it was almost done. Fresh blood covered the walls in spots and streaks, all the way up to the ceiling. General Je stepped over the bodies scattered on the floor, left foot over an arm, his right next to a severed hand. He was careful not to bother them. With a clean piece of cloth, he wiped the blade of the Starfall sword, making sure to remove all traces of blood off the ancient weapon. And as he did, he approached his final victim. Lord Shun was lying on the ground, one hand trying to stop the profuse amount of blood spilling from his stomach. And with his other, he clawed at the ground, desperately trying to reach the door. He barely moved an inch. I wonder, Je calmly said, if you are as familiar with the legend of the Starfall sword as you claim. Do you know of its other name? Shun gasped for air, spitting up blood. No, I don't suppose you do, Je continued. It's not commonly known. It's a name only whispered by those who have wielded it. A secret passed down only to the very few. The Zhongjun attempted to curse at him, but all that came out of his mouth was a gargle of suffering. Je reached him, standing tall, mighty, heartless. Let me educate you then, my lord. In the dark, we call this weapon the Serpent Sword. He plunged the blade into Shun, and the Zhongjun finally stopped moving. With a wet squelch, Je took the blade out. Another sweep of the cloth, and the cool steel was free of blood. He dropped the dirty fabric on Shun's body and headed out of the hall where his guards awaited. The air was crisp, cold. Winter was almost here. General, one guard exclaimed. "The messenger has returned. The invitation was accepted. She will be here within a fortnight." His face obscured, Je smiled, a crooked, toothless line on his face. "Excellent."